21st Century Radio is sponsored by Hieronimus and Company. This is Talk Radio 680 WCBM. It's time now for award-winning 21st Century Radio. Here's your host, Dr. Bob Hieronimus.
One world, one mind, one love. We will find on common ground. Peace will be found for all on earth.
You're listening to our very dear friend, Joanna Shenandoah Oneida Elder, whom we worked with for the past decade or so. And we just love what she does. Well, welcome back to 21st Century Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Bob Hieronimus. Our executive producer and research assistant is Laura Kortner. Our engineer is Vern Anderson. Last time I was on the air, I made a careless comment that I want to apologize for. I heard it offended some of you listeners, and I will be more careful with my word choices from here forward. Now, moving right along to tonight's program, our Woodstock Light Bus is still thrilling crowds on the West Coast, and our book number 2 on the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. Well, it's nearly done, and I can't wait to get it out there. For both hours tonight, we will be reviewing the book, The Return of Planet Sedna, by Jennifer Gehl. Named after a mythological Inuit sea woman, I hope I got that one right. The planet Sedna was first discovered in 2003, and its return to our solar system after 11,000 years of orbit has been tied to the huge tsunami that struck Indonesia, Thailand, and India in 2004, as well as to be the increased occurrence of other marine and weather events over the last decade. And just as it is affecting the waters of our planet, Sedna's energies are also affecting each of us as individuals. About our author, Jennifer T. Gehl, MHS, is a senior faculty member in the Acutonics, I've never heard of that word before, Institute of Integrative Medicine, the author of The Science of Planetary Signatures in Medicine, and she provides wellness astrology consulting the Astro Sound Attunements in Northampton, Massachusetts. Welcome to 21st Century Radio, Jennifer T. Gehl.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Thank you for having me on your show.
You're very welcome. I've had a great time reading every page of your book. There are many words in here I've never read before, but I really enjoyed it. Now, what inspired you to write The Return of Planet Sedna?
Well, first I want to say that's music to my ears. Thank you so much because, as you might imagine, I put a lot of energy into the book, and what inspired me really began with my journey as an acutonics practitioner. The Acutonics Institute is Acu for acupuncture, tonics referring to the tones that are used on the acupuncture points and meridian system of the body instead of needle insertion that acupuncturists will use. Mm-hmm. So the tuning forks are actually calibrated to the planetary frequencies, the orbital frequencies of the planets, and Sedna was one of them. So it's interesting and probably no coincidence that the year that I began my studies in acutonics was the year that Sedna was discovered, 2003. I might have started in 2002, but anyway, it was the same time frame. And so as soon as I began studying the acutonics curriculum, I learned about the planet Sedna, and I have been fascinated ever since. And I always intended to write a book, but actually never had the chance until recent years. So my journey has been one of combining music, which is where, what I started studying at a very early age, and I do have an undergraduate degree in music and violin performance. So I started out as a musician, and as a teenager became interested in astrology, and the journey of learning about myself through the language of astrology was a very healing experience for me. Later on, in my professional endeavors, and I've had many changes in my profession, I came upon acutonics. So that was when I became absolutely enthralled with Chinese medicine. Actually, I should back up a little bit. I was working first at an acupuncture school and receiving acupuncture treatments, and absolutely fell in love with the whole system of Chinese medicine. So at that point, I was part musician, part astrologer, and part lover of Chinese medicine. And acutonics is what brought it all together for me. Mm-hmm. So my path has been a long one. I am sure many people can relate to this. It's been one of trying different things and integrating, feeling like there were separate parts of myself or compartmentalized parts of myself that I really wanted to integrate and find a way to create a service that would be of value to my clients, to my friends, and to be truly meaningful. So that, and then writing, of course, is another love of mine, and that is part of my current service work.
Well, I know that we're going to be playing some music, your bumper music tonight, which is going to be all your work. And this is from your former band, Chime, where you play the violin, right?
That is correct.
We'll be listening to that a little later on in and out of the program. Does astrology determine our fate, or do we have free will?
This is a question that I have debated most of my life, and I have to say that my experience has taught me that it's both. The way I view the individual's place in the cosmos, in the greater whole, is that when we consider that we have a life purpose or destiny, it is something I believe we agreed upon before we incarnated. So we had choice in that matter. Mm-hmm. But once we incarnate, we tend to forget what we may have agreed upon. Let's just say, to use the analogy, we signed up for a certain curriculum and we didn't realize the homework that might be involved in those classes that we signed up for. And so as we go through life, life may unfold in very surprising ways, in ways that we had not intended. But to answer your question, we have free will when it comes to how we respond to the planetary frequencies. But I believe that if we have a specific destiny or purpose, there are infinite ways that we can express that. But the core energy is something that we keep coming back to. It's like the burning bush analogy, the story from the Bible that talks about the burning bush. It's the passion that drives us. And so And I also, just reminded myself today, and I want to share this with listeners. In Chinese medicine, there are 3 recognized levels of medicine. The first level is one that treats the symptoms. It's the most immediate. The second level of medicine is more preventative. It looks at more of what is causing the symptoms. But the third and highest level of medicine is connecting the individual to their life purpose, to their destiny. And this is why I love astrology, and this is why I love Chinese medicine, and it's also why I view the two and the dance between the individual's life and the dance of the planets in the heavens and the cosmos as a music metaphor. I feel that just as the musical composition, that is created by a great master, no matter who, take your pick, Beethoven, Bach, Wagner, whatever, whoever your favorite, Mozart, whoever your favorite composer is, it's going to be brought to life in a different way and interpreted differently depending on whether it's a student or a master performing it. And the more connected we are to that piece of music, and I use this analogy with the natal chart, the astrology chart, the snapshot of the heavens at the time a person is born. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it really is frozen music. Geometry is frozen music.
Indeed.
So the way the soul or the consciousness of the individual brings that to life is going to vary depending on how experienced that soul or consciousness is. And so the more connected we are to the whole, to the greater whole represented by the cosmos, and the more we understand what the planetary energies are activating within us or calling forth, in us to express.
When did you...
Yeah.
I was going to ask
Go
you,
ahead.
when did you learn why you're here on this planet, what your purpose was?
I think it was a gradual unfolding. I mean, I have always been interested in the supernatural or the extra phenomenal world, what I consider to be the spirit world or the unseen realm. I've found great comfort steeping myself in what I feel to be my spiritual family. I don't see them. But I do hear them. I have conversations with them. I know that I am guided by them. I have always felt their presence. And I just trust it. I don't deny it. I know that I've been guided by a very powerful and profound spiritual family, and I believe that we all have that around us and at our disposal. But we do experience more of that which we put our attention on. And I just feel that ever since I was, I don't know, I'm just recalling 3 years old, but probably even earlier than that, I've always sensed the presence of this family.
Mm-hmm.
And that dialogue has continued, it's expanded, and I do feel that a lot of what I write about comes from this relationship that I've cultivated and that I've developed with my spiritual family.
Well, I think that is extremely important in your work. You seem to be multi-talented. It seems that, well, there are a lot of questions I want to ask you that deal with the same thing, which is, why should we put service above financial reward? Because I think that is the point. That is the key right now with people developing. Service to others becomes really the ultimate, especially during this time period. And I know we'll touch on earth changes or climate changes a little later on. But
Sure.
Most importantly, those who serve and just do it without reward, you know that there is an inner reward, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that inner reward is the kind of thing that allows you to grow more and more without even thinking about growing. You just do. So I just wanted to point that. I know we're coming up on a break. Is that true? My boss says yes.
Well, it has been true in my life. I know that I have had a very rich inner spiritual life, and that is what this book is about. And I do
Indeed.
believe that is what the Return of Sedna is teaching us, and I know we'll have a chance to go into greater depth with that. But yes, the inner path is rich, and it is that, well, to use the old phrase, seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things will be added to you. It is true, I believe.
Well, we're going to take our first break here, Gehl. Jennifer.
Yes.
The Return of Planet Sedna, Astrology, Healing, and the Awakening of Cosmic Kundalini, Healing Arts Press. You want to get a copy of this book, friends. I really enjoyed working on this. Available wherever books are sold or at innertraditions.com. Jennifer's website and Soundworks can be found online at Soundworks by Gehl. That's Gehl. Gehl.com. All of these links are on the front page of 21stcenturyradio.com, so check it out. And listen to Jennifer's violin right now. Do you appreciate the Statue of Liberty as an American goddess? Well, we do, in our new book, Secret Life of Lady Liberty, Goddess in the New World. It's been described as a long overdue feminist and multi-ethnic history of the Statue of Liberty that surprisingly draws our country's entire history through this iconic image. Appreciating the Statue of Liberty as America's goddess allowed us to explore her Native American and feminist roots and to envision a sustainable future where liberty indeed prevails. What can the Statue of Liberty teach us about women's power? Well, find out at www.secretlifeofladyliberty.com. That's secretlifeofladyliberty.com.
This is Elaine Pagels, author of The Gnostic Gospel, and also of a new book called Revelations, Visions, Prophecy, and Politics in the Book of Revelation. I'm a professor of religion at Princeton University, and you are listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronimus.
Oh boy, it's been some time since we got together with her. And that leads me to asking another different question. And that is this: how has historical patriarchal dominance in society created a scientific bias in search for the truth?
Well, it's going to be a really long answer, but I'm going to do my best to keep it simple. We have had thousands of years where we've experienced this separation, and between what we see and where we put our attention and the intuitive realm. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to use medicine as an example, because at the time of Hippocrates, that really was when science and medicine separated energy and spirit from studying the substance. And that is really when this separation began. Prior to that, medicine had been practiced in a way that recognized and understood that all things exist in relationship. They also understood that there was an energetic expression of the four elements: fire, earth, air, water, or fire, solids, liquids, gas. There was an energetic or spiritual expression of those elements in addition to a physical manifestation. And this separation has created such polarity in our current culture and current consciousness on this planet that we no longer value, or for so long we have not placed enough value on our energetic component, the intuition, the mysteries, the, what comes from the spirit world informs what becomes material. And it also has a lot to do with the fact, and I talk about this in the book, that just as we have only explored 5% of life in our oceans, we also are only aware of 5% of all reality. Scientists have revealed this recently. So 95% of all reality is unknown to us. It's considered dark matter. But so we have come to value only what is already in the manifested world, only what is already material, and that's what we base our decisions on. And we're missing so much richness.
Yeah, we're missing about 95%. We're missing about 95%. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, I would say so.
And so you and I can walk around and see other things going on in the atmosphere, and other people don't necessarily see them, and that's unfortunate because it's those things that they should be able to see if they grew internally. They don't, unfortunately. But I think that's a very tough question I asked you. And I kind of apologize for that because
don't apologize. These are tough questions.
Oh, of course. Well, that's why
take practice.
You wrote a great book. That's why I can ask you tough questions, and that's the most important aspect of this because I learned a great deal from your book. And one of the other areas that absolutely thrilled me, and I'm serious about that, is this on page 1. Is there an indwelling of consciousness existing in everything we see around us? Now, my goodness, wow. Would you tackle that one for us? Because, geez, oh whiz, this will let people know that, yes, that 95% that we're missing is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. The planet is alive, and all we have to do to really understand that is to observe nature. Life is eternal, and so it is constantly morphing from one form into another. Scientists have told us this. Energy doesn't die, it merely changes form. The planet and all of the planets in the cosmos have life and have consciousness, just like all of the plants on Earth. The animal kingdom, and even the mineral kingdom.
Especially the mineral kingdom.
I'm sorry?
I said especially the mineral kingdom.
Yeah. And one of the stories I love to share is actually from my first book, but I'd like to offer this to your listeners, is a story of the 16th century physician Paracelsus, who would go and spend time with the miners, and the miners would tell him stories about how they would be in one area mining and find absolutely no gold. And then they would return to that area years later, and there would be gold. To me, this was a profound revelation because it does illustrate the fact that the mineral, gold is just one example, does grow.
Indeed.
And, we don't perceive plants growing, but we know that they do because one day they're a sprout and the next day they're this beautiful, green plant with blossoms. So, or, the mustard seed that turns into a magnificent tree. These are things that in other words, it's happening at such a rate that we take it for granted. But that growth, that evolution is happening all around us all the time.
Well, we have a very dear friend of ours. Have you ever heard of the book called The Secret Life of Plants by
Yes.
Christopher
Yes.
Bird? Christopher,
I love that book.
he was the my best man at our wedding. We had a very deep relationship that went on for decades. And the trouble that he had in writing this book, this was what, in the late 70s, somewhere around early 70s, I think it was tremendous. They had serious problems because people had a rough time thinking that maybe plants didn't have consciousness or you couldn't communicate with them.
Mm-hmm.
And thank heavens that time period is over because a lot of people now are communicating with their plants.
Totally. Everything that is created responds to the consciousness around it. That is why healing is reciprocal. That is why our relationship to the cosmos, to the greater whole, and our environment is so important in the healing process. Healing simply means becoming more whole. And we have to recognize this interconnectedness that all of life has,
Yes.
and the relationship that all of the kingdoms, when I say that I mean the animal kingdom, plant kingdom, and humans have. Humans too. And this is the ancient Hermetic principle, as above, so below, as within, so without. And this is why I feel that it's so important to understand ourselves through the language of astrology, because if astronomy is the language of the cosmos, astrology is a way for the individual to understand his or her place in the greater whole.
Makes sense to me. For the past 50 years, I've been using astrology, and I must say that I would have probably disappeared a long time ago had I not known the proper times or good times to do things and other times to shut up. If you know what I mean,
Yeah. Yes, I do.
But there's so many interesting things about this book. I'm literally shaken with the energy here because what you taught me about water is extraordinary. Yeah. And I know we'll get to it, but my heavens, that is just, water is the key to so many things, especially healing. And what we've done to it is we're going to pay a heavy price for that.
Well, I'd like to offer hope in that respect, because while it's true that we are at a place now in our evolving history where we've reached the extreme polarity, the opportunity for healing is absolutely important for every person to understand. It's available to all of us. And I really believe that the fastest way to heal our planet and to heal our waters is to do the inner work individually. We are, and I'm going to borrow something that I recently heard Marianne, oh, this is embarrassing. Now I can't, well, what she said, I'll just share with you.
And I would help you with that, but her name just slipped
No,
mine.
that's okay.
Go ahead.
She was talking about how each of us is an immune cell, and I believe that is true. So if each one of us takes on the responsibility of healing ourselves, and by that I mean looking at what triggers us, looking at what still evokes a charge emotionally. Water represents emotions. So when we take care of what is triggering us emotionally, and we work on transforming that, to neutralize it, to understand that every experience we have is an opportunity to overcome a fear, to overcome an emotional challenge, and to stay in the vibration of love, to not respond or react in fear or anger or hate. And those emotions are going to come up. We're human. We're going to have those emotions, and I'm not suggesting for a second that we should ignore them. But finding expression for them is different than staying in the vibration of a negative emotion for a long period of time. That is what causes stress on the body, and that is what contributes toxicity into the greater environment.
We need to get to celestial signatures. Can we do that now? Nope.
Yeah, sure.
Well, my boss says we can't do it now because we have to take a break. So that's what we got to do. And she rules. That's no doubt about that. We'll be back with our guest, Jennifer Gehl, the return of planet Sedna, and we'll get to Sedna probably next hour. Astrology, healing, and the awakening of Cosmic Kundalini Healing Arts Press. All of these links are on the front page of 21stcenturyradio.com.
Hello, this is Joanne Shenandoah. I'm a Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter, Native American Music Award winner, and you're listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronimus.
I hear the song of a whispering memory. I hear the voice of a mystical dream. I hear the angels calling, calling with love, reaching outward.
Whispering Dream. You're listening to Whispering Dream, and this is an original song sung by Jennifer Gehl with herself on the piano. Boy, I wish I could play the piano. I really could. I should have could learn that. Well, welcome back to 21st Century Radio. We're talking to Jennifer Gehl, the return of the planet Sedna, and I think we better start moving in the direction of Sedna. But so, what is the celestial signature, and does the celestial signature ever change?
So for individuals rather than plants, I will answer that question first, and then I would like, if we have time, to talk a little bit about the Sedna Discovery Chart. For individuals, the natal signature, the snapshot of the sky at the time a person is born, is something that does stay the same. It's analogous to a bottle of wine that carries the notes of the grapes that made it. With maturity, that wine is going to taste better, and the same goes for, the natal chart, let's say. The more the person cultivates the richness there and learns to play the music better, I'm going to use that analogy again, then that chart is going to be brought to life in a different way. But the actual signature, the natal chart itself, a snapshot of the sky, is something that does not change. There are, however, progressed charts where we look at the relationship of the progressed sun, conscious core, will, and personality with the moon, the unconscious emotional needs of the individual. So how the conscious and unconscious personalities are moving together and evolving together. The sun, the progressed sun moves 1 degree per year. The progressed moon moves 1 degree per month. So each time the sun moves into a different sign or the moon moves into a different sign, that individual is going to feel that influence or that archetype. And so we do change. And then, of course, there are the transits. So as the transits, the current sky is what I'm speaking of when I speak of transits. as the planets in the sky continue to move, they will activate the energy within our natal signature, celestial signature. And as they do, they're going to bring to life or invite us into the dance of changing in this area of life, transforming in this area, letting this go, or inviting something new into a new job, a new person, new friends, etc. And sometimes we are not ready for those changes. Sometimes we experience the loss of something, and that's all that we can focus on. And we forget the fact that something new is coming in. So, but to answer your question, the celestial signature, the natal chart, does remain the same. But there are different cycles represented by the progressed planets, the solar return, etc., that represent different cycles that we will be experiencing. But with the discovery chart of Sedna, there is something really magical in that chart that pertains to, it actually forms a hexagram or a six-pointed star, which we have, what we know as the Star of David. The six-pointed star is the Star of David. And what this means astrologically, it's formed by two trines, or think of the trines as triangles or pyramids. One pyramid pointing heavenward, the other pyramid pointing earthward. This is symbolic, a profound symbol of the balance between heaven and earth. So this hexagram in the Sedna chart is an opportunity for us to regain balance between all the extreme expressions of what we have come to perceive as polarities, whether it's masculine, feminine, lightness and dark, the good and evil, or when we view things through a more metaphysical lens or metaphorical lens, as we do in the principles of the Tao or Chinese medicine, we understand that yin gives birth to yang and yang gives birth to yin. In other words, darkness gives birth to light, just as light gives birth to darkness. And we see this in our four seasons. We see this at the solstice and at the winter solstice and at the summer solstice. Because when daylight is at its peak, it's going to give birth to shorter days or to darkness. When darkness in the wintertime is at its peak, it gives birth to light or longer days. So again, we can look to nature for the balance of these complementary forces. Yin essence and feminine energy has been vilified. And this goes back to our previous discussion.
Yes.
When you asked me
about the patriarchal dominance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think we're maybe almost at a turning point on that. It's taken a long time. It certainly has. Well, but since we're actually talking about the planet Sedna, what's the significance of Sedna's return to our solar system?
I really believe there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Sedna.
It
but
sure is.
What's coming to mind now is this coming full circle with our ancient past and being given the opportunity to explore those mysteries, because I do believe that we are going to find in years to come, we're going to find more and more how our history, as it's been written up to this point, needs to be rewritten. It will be. We're going to discover a lot of false things about history as we've known it, and I believe that more and more things are going to come to light with regard to ancient history on this planet. But the other thing, and the reason I said it's coming full circle, is that Sedna also represents uncharted territories having to do with our future. So on the one hand, we're going to, I think, come to appreciate and value more our relationship with our ancestors. At the same time, we will discover new things in the realm of science. So there is this beautiful opportunity to really marry science and spirit, and I think that that is something, as years progress and as we come to understand more about the planet Sedna, this is something that we will see happening.
Well, I think our audience is probably thinking that they've never heard of the planet Sedna, but within your book, we find out that there are numerous other planets outside of our solar system that I believe will eventually somehow be involved with our consciousness here. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it seems to me, well, I'd love to hear your discussion on Sedna and how it may affect us, because it's really profound. It's yes, let's go in that direction.
It is profound because of its orbit and its unusual orbital properties or characteristics. It is certainly unique in the fact that it's the first planet to be named outside Greco-Roman tradition. So one of its major lessons for us is to look beyond tradition, to look beyond what we have previously been taught or known for answers, and to explore the uncharted territory, the mysteries beyond our solar system. So it is unusual, it is unique that it was the first planet to be named for the Inuit daughter, the Inuit girl who, through her death, became the immortal sea woman, and she was betrayed by her father first and then her husband, and left to drown in the Arctic Sea. Through her drowning, though, she, as I said, transformed into the immortal sea woman who became the provider of nourishment, the provider of food and sustenance to the Inuit people, to the very people who abandoned her. And this is, of course, a myth, and there are always many variations on myths. But something very interesting that I'd like to share with you and with listeners is that the word mythos, its original meaning meant records of the ancient people, and it was later redefined by the church to take on the meaning stories veering far from any truthfulness. So the way we have relegated myth stories is to believe or to simply dismiss that there is any truth or any wisdom to be found, that they're just fanciful stories. And I actually believe that we will come to find more truth in myths and legends. I believe that as archaeology turns up greater, more artifacts, and as we discover more about our planet, we will probably uncover a lot of truth to many of the myths and legends.
Indeed, you're right. Right now, at this time, we know that the Sphinx was not 4,000 years old, but our dear friend Dr. Robert Schoch, whom we've worked with for 20-some years, his theories are working out, that indeed it's minimum of 8,000 years old, and probably older than that. So who in the world could have created it? And I think this ties into what you're saying in regards to there is so much that we're going to have to actually relearn because because we were a bit inaccurate to begin with. And if you've ever dealt with Egyptologists, and I have many times, then you realize just how far they're away from this. They do not like this at all. But unfortunately, there is such a thing as science and geology and geography, geology that is, that confirms this. And it's going to be a long time. Well, it's going to take a long time, but that's one of the great things about this time period. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the Sedna or other planets that may be coming through our system that we don't know anything about, at least we're not told about.
This coming full circle, yes, I do believe is the merging of our ancient past with our future possibilities. That's one of the things I do believe Sedna has to bring to us. It's a gift. And there may be more common themes. Our perception of time, I believe, is changing. It is
sure
evolving.
Is. And right now we got a problem because we have a commercial. Actually, it's the top of the hour, which gives us the news. So we'll be right back with Jennifer Gehl, the return of planet Sedna, astrology, healing, and the awakening of cosmic Kundalini Healing Arts Press. All of these links are on the front page of 21stCenturyRadio.com.
Open the doors and board them. There's hope for all among the loved the most.
And stay informed on the #1 news talk station, Talk Radio 680, WCBM, Baltimore, and WCBM.com. Over